want to go across first to Sumit Chander, actually, advocate joining us. Sumit Chander, there has been a lot of legalities and legalese that have been discussed as far as this bill is concerned. For the benefit of our viewers, would you just put it into context? Is it wrong of the executive, the parliament in this case, to decide who should be in the selection panel for the CEC?
See, for that, you need to understand the background as to what it was. Now, it all starts with the Constitution of India, Article 324, Sub-Article 2. And it's clearly stated there that the appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners shall be made by the President. So that the Constitution provides, it cannot be challenged at all. In Anup Barnwal case, which the judgment was passed by a 5-judges bench in March 2023 on a PIL, Supreme Court held that there is a need for the Election Commission of India and CEC to be independent and fair. And that there should be a committee for appointment of CEC and ECI, which shall comprise of the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition and the Chief Justice of India. They said these 3 categories of people basically to say that it is extremely important that the Election Commission of India and the Chief Election Commissioner function very independently, as it is an important part of democracy. But keep in mind, in the same judgment, the Supreme Court also clarified that this committee shall function only till the Parliament drafts an alternative.
Yes.
End of the democracy is by the people, so the Parliament has to take the final call on this.
No, that I did mention, but the question that is being raised is whether the government of the day is right or wrong in removing the CGI. Was the CGI ever supposed to play a role in the selection of the CEC?
See, there are the 3 pillars of the Constitution: the judiciary, the executive and the legislature. So Supreme Court, in all fairness, felt that all the 3 pillars, one representative from the 3 pillars of the Constitution should be made part of this. But new bill, section 7, it says that the Election Commissioner shall be appointed, of course, by the President, as the Constitution says, but it shall now be done on the recommendation of a selection committee, as Supreme Court had said, should be comprising of 3 people. That should include, of course, the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition, so we have the other side, and a Union Cabinet Minister to be appointed by the Prime Minister. Keep in mind that democracy, when it is to be taken care of, the independence is done by 3 totally independent bodies. Supreme Court's judgment, leaving it to the Parliament making the law and sticking to the fact that 3 different independent members should be done, has been taken care of under the Act. What needs to be seen is that the 3rd, which is the most important, is the Union Cabinet Minister to be nominated by the Prime Minister would turn out to be an absolute independent member to have a say in all the 3 aspects of judiciary, the executive and the legislature. Now that independence needs to be checked on. And
well, obviously the Union Minister is bound to agree with the view of the government of the day. And I'm talking about the selection panel, the search panel, coming up with a list of 5 individuals and then giving it to the selection panel. So, you could argue that it's going to be 2 versus 1, which is possibly what was sought to be eliminated. But you could also argue that putting the CGI was wrong because the judiciary is not supposed to play a role in what is effectively an executive matter, which is what the government's argument is. And the CGI was never meant to be on this panel. So I want to go across quickly to the Congress representative. Dolly Sharma is also joining us. Dolly, in the past, the Congress has very vehemently criticized this bill when it was passed in Rajya Sabha and now as well. What is the way forward for the Congress party as far as this bill is concerned? Because we've heard some murmurs from the opposition that they would like to challenge this in the Supreme Court, for example.
Yeah, this bill is totally unconstitutional and anti-people. This is very clear because putting up, removing the CJI from the committee and playing with their own cabinet minister itself is setting dangerous precedent because...
But there is no precedent in this case. Dolly, the problem is exactly this. There was no precedent in this case.
No, that's what I'm saying. That it itself is stating that, of course, because of the cabinet minister will go with the government and removing the CJI is giving a dangerous sign to the constitution, to this nation, to the democracy. Why do they want to do this? This is a clear as I said, unconstitutional message that has, today gone to the entire nation. What is the need? Do they want to create and fascism जैसा चल रहा है यहाँ हिटलर शाही पूरी चलाना चाहते हैं, तानाशाही पूरी चली रही है देश में, and by removing the CJI is giving the message to the entire nation कि yes, अब हम लोकतंत्र में नहीं है और नहीं रहेंगे, क्योंकि जिस तरीके के we are going to challenge this to the Supreme Court. We will move to the Supreme Court because this is totally the murder of democracy that we see today.
Can I just ask you as a follow-up, the Supreme Court judgment in itself said that this panel that they are envisaging with the CGI in it was to be functioning only till the government brings in a law or the parliament passes a law. So on what grounds will you challenge it again in the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court gave away to the government to bring this bill.
No, but putting up a CJI is always good when it comes to, the democracy. You cannot think of a cabinet minister taking a decision against the government. Of course, the minister will go with the government.
Yes,
that's clear.
Precisely the point the government is making. I want to go across to Sidharth Yadav of the BJP also joining us, but I do want to explain this for our viewers beyond party lines. When the CECs were being appointed in India since independence, they were being done purely at the behest of the executive. There was no role of the judiciary. So it's not like there was a role of the judiciary which has been eliminated now. The role of the CGI was brought in only via the Supreme Court judgment. Before that, it was the government of the day, the executive of the day that was deciding who the CEC should be. So if no heavens fell then, what heavens have fallen down now is the question that will arise. And the government has been very categorical in saying that there is a separation of power in our constitution. The judiciary is not meant to interfere in matters which are in the executive's domain. But on that, I want to bring in Sidharth Yadav as well. There are doubts emerging. And we are marching towards the 2024 general elections, big elections to take place in the country. And clearly the opposition is raising doubts on the neutrality of the Election Commission. That by eliminating the CJI, the government wants to remote control the Election Commission itself. How do you respond to that?
Shivani, first of all, I think whenever any of my friends from Congress come out and say that the democracy is in danger or the constitution is in danger, they should actually go back and see the conduct of their MPs, what they do on the stairs of the temple of democracy, and how they do for the second highest constitutional position of our country. Some Atmanthan there can probably, make the picture clearer. But I have to speak on this bill today. Definitely the provision laid down by the Supreme Court was only a temporary one. And the Supreme Court made it very clear that the setup is only going to be up till the government makes a law. If we have to look at any change, I think the change is that the voice of opposition has been added to the setup wherein the Chief Election Commissioner will be now appointed. It was always never in the Congress rule, never in the history when they ruled the country. They even never cared about how the CEC is being appointed. They thought so, they appointed one, and no problems happened according to them. But now today, when finally a bill has been made, a committee will be formed, a panel will be there, and entire procedure has been laid down to select the Chief Election Commissioner. I think it's very unjust on the part of the entire opposition, especially on Congress, that they want to blow something out of proportion.
Okay,
and I'm really shocked that my friend from Congress was saying that it is anti-people. The people's Lok Sabha, the people's Rajya Sabha is deciding this. The people's representatives are voting for a bill that the people, it cannot be anti-people. There is a setup in our constitution. That setup has to be followed. The executive, the separation of power has to be followed. The executive, ma'am, I was not speaking in between of you. If you want to speak, please go ahead. I'll not speak. Dolly, I was not speaking in between of you. Please have the courtesy to hear me out. Dolly, please have the courtesy to hear me out.
Sidharth, I just want to quickly come in.
Shivani, are you saying something?
Yes, very quickly finish. I'll give you 10 seconds.
Sure.
I want to come in after that, please.
Yeah, so there is a very clear separation of power in our constitution. That separation of power gives the absolute right to the legislature, to the executive, to lay out any law for any such appointment. There can be no overpowering, there can be no crossing the line between the wings of our
Okay.
democracy, and
In
that
fact,
is what has
that
been
is
followed
what
in
is
this bill.
enshrined in
The
the
opposition has a
constitution.
say,
I
and
go